Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. Today, are humans mere beginners on the galactic stage, or can a clever commander turn the tide with what others see as mere toys? Let's get into the story. You're telling me we based our entire strategy on this? Commander Sean Wright stared in disbelief at the flickering holographic projection. It was supposed to depict his ship, the heavy cruiser Indomitable, cloaked and ready for combat. Instead, the ship appeared and vanished in bursts of static, a crude, unconvincing illusion that wouldn't fool a rookie cadet. The lead engineer winced. "It's the most we could do given the technology we're allowed, sir. Galactic Council regulations restrict cloaking tech for newly integrated species. They were unconvinced by our early prototypes." Unconvinced is putting it mildly. Wright grumbled, recalling the dismissive snorts of the Skrellian delegation during the tech unveiling. The sleek, insectoid aliens had openly scoffed at the human device, a flicker shield, they'd called it. Nothing more, and Wright wouldn't argue. Compared to the near-perfect invisibility their own cruisers boasted, his looked like a child's toy. "Regulations exist for a reason, Commander," Admiral Griggs, his superior officer, had said with strained patience. "We humans are new to the galactic stage. We have to prove ourselves. Play nice until we earn our stripes." Playing nice while serving as glorified targets? Wright had dared to protest. The Skrellians had been a thorn in humanity's side for years. Border raids, trade disruptions, a constant, stinging reminder of the fledgling status. But as usual, political caution had overruled military concerns, and the flicker cloak was begrudgingly approved for limited deployment. Now, here he was, commanding a fleet of faintly flickering warships on a vital supply run. It was a sitting duck, an invitation for any raider with half a brain, and the Skrellians had more than half. Wright swore colorfully under his breath. "All right, let's make the best of this debacle. Com, send the dispersed formation pattern, maximum flicker, and tell our gunners to expect close combat." The comms officer blinked. "Dispersed, sir? Are you sure? Standard tactic is to cluster to maximize defensive fire." "Standard tactics are aimed at enemies that can't see us coming," Wright barked. "The Skrellians will smell blood once they detect even a hint of this shoddy cloak. No, we fight them on our terms." He jabbed a finger at the flickering display. "This mess ain't about stealth, it's about chaos." The Indomitable led the convoy, a lumbering giant amid a scattering of flickering escorts. Sean Wright prowled the bridge, tension singing along his nerves. He drilled his crews relentlessly, hammering home the unorthodox tactics, flickering in and out of view, unpredictable bursts of fire, disrupting enemy targeting instead of relying on the laughable stealth. Still, theory and practice were worlds apart. The hours stretched into a jittery, flickering eternity. Reports flowed in from the dispersed fleet. Sensor ghosts danced along the fringes, hints of Skrellian warships skulking nearby. Then the first strike. Not against the Indomitable, but on the flanks, where a trio of flicker-cloaked freighters abruptly winked out of existence. "Raiders!" Wright spat. "Fast, light craft. They spotted an easy kill. Comms, order the escorts to converge and engage. Full firepower on those bastards." The Indomitable surged forward, the rest of the decoy fleet spreading wide in a seemingly panicked scramble. Wright knew better. Every erratic flicker, every feint was part of a deadly ballet he'd choreographed. He just needed the Skrellians to dance to his tune. On the display, the pursuing Skrellian vessels formed a predatory arrowhead, sleek, deadly, and focused entirely on hunting down the flickering freighter remnants. Exactly as planned. "Prepare the ambush pattern," Wright ordered, his voice low. "They think we're broken. It's time to show them what shattered really looks like." The comms officer licked his lips, eyes wide. "Sir, ambush? Are you sure?" "You're damn right I am," Wright snapped. He slammed a fist on the console. "Standard tactics gave us nothing but grief. Now we have one advantage. They think they know how we'll react. Let's give them something they didn't bargain for." The tension on the bridge ratcheted higher. The Skrellian raiders were closing in on their flickering prey, no doubt savoring their imminent victory. Suddenly, the Indomitable flickered hard, vanishing altogether from the displays. Silence descended, punctuated by the thrum of the ship and the faint crackle of static. Then a single question, thick with apprehension from the hell. "Sir? Resurface coordinates?" Wright's grin was predatory. "Not just resurface. Full power to lateral thrusters. Send us right into their midst." The Indomitable materialized like an apparition from the void, not somewhere behind the pursuing Skrellians, but directly beside them. The shock on the bridge was palpable, mirrored on external view screens as the sleek raider swerved in startled confusion. They seemed momentarily incapable of comprehending why their supposedly helpless prey had just materialized as their worst nightmare. For what seemed like an impossible eternity, the great cruiser hung there, silent and flickering. Then Sean Wright's voice shattered the stillness. "Unleash hell!" Weapons roared to life, tearing through the momentary paralysis. The Indomitable, designed as a heavy brawler, unleashed its broadsides at point-blank range. Laser cannons raked armor, missiles punched holes in shields, and the flicker cloaking flickered in and out, distorting targeting systems and adding to the utter chaos. The Skrellian arrowhead formation disintegrated. Their sleek predators weren't built for a head-on brawl. Their strength lay in hit-and-run tactics against isolated targets. Now caught off balance and trapped alongside this flickering monstrosity. They were fish in a barrel. Wright watched with grim satisfaction as one sleek raider, its shields flickering desperately, disintegrated under repeated laser fire. He heard a strangled gasp as a second cruiser, its sleek hull breached, was gutted by a cascade of internal explosions. Debris tumbled in a deadly dance with its panicking sister ships. The Skrellian raiders now desperately vying for space to escape. "Comms, where's the rest of our fleet?" Wright barked, adrenaline a bitter thrum in his veins. If they timed it right, his escorts should be converging on the remaining disorganized raiders. "Forming up, sir!" Relief colored his comms officer's voice. "Coming in fast from the flanks. Looks like Hell, they're finishing off the ones we tagged. They're weaving through the debris, flicker cloaks working like a charm. The Skrellians don't know where to shoot." He couldn't help a vicious grin. The flicker had done its job not through stealth, but sheer unpredictable chaos. Lured by seemingly easy prey, the Skrellians had walked headfirst into a trap, their very own arrogance turning against them. The flicker-cloaked escorts, seeming to appear and disappear at will, were hammering away at the remaining raiders whose attempts to regroup were a pathetic shambles. "Admiral Rytok," Wright said, addressing the Skrellian flagship that had desperately tried to disengage. "Perhaps you should reconsider your assessment of human technology. You thought we were primitives playing with children's toys?" The Skrellian commander's retort was barely coherent, a snarl of rage and disbelief crackling through the ship's failing comms. It was full of venom, denial, of the desperation of a predator suddenly cornered by its prey. Wright cut the transmission with a smirk. The battle wouldn't last long. The Skrellians, so cocksure only moments ago, were now the broken ones. It was ruthless, it was brutal, and it was long overdue. Sometimes you couldn't play nice in the galaxy. Sometimes you had to become a flickering nightmare and let the enemy fear the dark. The final raider exploded in a blaze of white-hot metal, signaling the end of the ambush. Cheers echoed across the comms as the battered but triumphant human fleet regrouped. It had been a risky-as-hell gamble, but by every metric, it had been a brilliant success. Minimal losses, the Skrellian raiders completely shattered, and beyond the numbers, something more profound had shifted. Sean Wright, still buzzing with adrenaline, received Admiral Griggs's transmission. The Admiral's typical somber face held a grudging approval.
"Well, Commander,"
Griggs grunted.
"Color me surprised. Seems the flicker cloak might have a use after all."
A relieved laugh bubbled out of Ray. "Yes, sir. Maybe less with the stealth and more with the mind games side of warfare."
"Reckless and unorthodox,"
Griggs grumbled, but the edge in his voice had softened.
"You'll write me a full report on how the hell you pulled that off. And council be damned, I might be putting in a requisition for improved flicker tech development. This may have potential."
"Potential, sir?" Wright raised an eyebrow. "We just played with those Skrellian bastards like puppets." He gestured to the view screen, where salvage crews swarmed over the debris field. They won't recover from this anytime soon, and maybe, just maybe, word of this will spread. Give the rest of the galaxy pause before they write us off as easy pickings. The Admiral's gaze turned distant, as though he was staring not at reports but the future.
You've proven your point, right? Turns out the best defense sometimes isn't hiding. It's making the enemy fear what might be lurking in the shadows.
The comms link cut, leaving Wright alone on the bridge. He slumped into his command chair, exhaustion catching up with him. The gamble had paid off, but it was only a battle, not the war. The Skrellians wouldn't forgive, wouldn't forget. Other raiders, other powers might test the flickering ghost ships. Humanity's place in this ruthless galaxy wasn't won. Not yet. But they had a new edge, a reputation forming. They were no longer predictable prey. A flicker appeared on the far side of the debris field, a ship, cloaked, but now with the undeniable air of menace. Wright had the strange sensation it wasn't an enemy, more likely a scout from some other race, quietly assessing the aftermath. The galaxy was a big, dangerous place, and the story of the Flicker fleet had only just begun. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Salvage teams combed through debris, scavenging valuable intel from the wrecked Skrellian sensor suites. Wounded crew received care, and the battered ships limped back to port sporting fresh battle scars. Sean Wright found himself an unlikely hero dragged into interviews he'd rather avoid. The Skrellian ambush and the unorthodox flicker tactic dominated the galactic news feeds. Yet Wright was left with a lingering unease. It wasn't the sudden spotlight, but that presence he'd glimpsed at the edge of the battlefield. A flickering ship like his own, yet somehow different. Sleeker, stranger, vanishing into the depths of space before he could pinpoint its origin. Weeks later, the summons from Admiral Griggs only confirmed his fears. "Right?" The Admiral began, his usual sternness replaced by a tautness Wright had rarely witnessed. "Those sensor suites you recovered. Well, the analysts have torn them apart, and it doesn't add up." He gestured to a display where instead of Skrellian tech, there were schematics? Blueprints? It looked like cloaking technology, but vastly refined. Elegant, even. In a way human flicker cloaks simply weren't. "And this ain't Skrellian," Wright breathed, a knot forming in his stomach. "And they're too advanced for this, right?" "Wrong," Griggs grimly replied. "Every component of this design is within their tech level. Problem is, they never build anything remotely close. This," he waved at the display, "this is generations ahead of the crap they threw at you. Someone's been teaching them." A wave of nausea washed over Wright. The implications were chilling. Who? Who else is out there messing with the balance like this? "We don't know," Griggs confessed. "Could be a rival power trying to destabilize the region, or maybe someone with a greater agenda. Whatever it is, they saw your little show. The question now is whether they saw it as a warning or an invitation." Wright felt a chill run down his spine. They had disrupted the expected game. Flicker cloaks weren't meant for deception and ambush, but they turned them into precisely that, and now, some unseen power had taken notice, and humanity had become a far more interesting target. "If this tech gets out," he began, "the Skrellians will be the least of our problems," Griggs finished. "We're gonna have to rethink everything, right? The Flicker fleet was a stopgap measure, something to buy us time. Now, looks like time just ran out." Fear was a luxury Sean Wright couldn't afford. This invisible manipulator was a threat, yes, but dwelling on it could only lead to paralysis. Instead, he turned to what he did best, making the most of a bad hand. Hi, sorry to interrupt the story, but a lot of you who are listening right now aren't actually subscribed. It's completely free and allows our stories to pop up on your feed much more often. If you're enjoying the story, please consider clicking the subscribe button underneath the video right now. Back to the story. "So they've seen our trick," he mused, circling the shimmering blueprints. "They know a flicker cloak doesn't have to mean defenseless. And what would you do, Admiral, if you were them?" Griggs grunted, his mind catching up. Adapt. Exploit the vulnerability we've just revealed. Use their fancy cloaks not just for hit and run, but to bypass defenses entirely. Strike at the heart." Realization dawned in his eyes. "Oh, hell, the colonies." The galactic colonies were the soft underbelly of human expansion, spread thin, reliant on outdated tech, and woefully underdefended. a playground for an enemy with superior cloaking capabilities. Fury boiled up in Wright alongside the fear. They'd fought so hard, bled so much to establish a foothold in the galaxy. He wouldn't let some shadowy puppeteer snatch it away. So the game changes entirely, he said, determination hardening in his voice. We need countermeasures fast. Detection systems that don't rely on sight. Something that picks up a flicker cloak, even a perfect one. Griggs looked doubtful. Easier said than done, Commander. That kind of tech is theoretical, expensive, and the Council won't. The Council can go to hell. Wright snapped. We don't have time for bureaucracy. Tell me we don't have something stashed away. Mothballed prototypes, abandoned projects, anything that can be jury-rigged to spot these bastards. The Admiral hesitated. Then a flicker of a smile touched his lips. There might be something. An old skunkworks side project aimed at tracking energy signatures, not visuals. Never got past the lab stage, fiddly, unstable, but it might just spot a flicker. Wright finished. Get the text down here. We need this yesterday. The following weeks were a frantic mix of retrofitting, retraining, and strategizing. The Flicker fleet was grounded, its ships crawling with technicians, transforming it into something new. They weren't building defenses, they were building a trap, one the enemy would trip willingly. Outwardly, the colony system of Nova Terra seemed an easy mark. Mining complexes buzzed with activity, cargo ships plied the predictable space lanes, and orbital defenses were more symbolic than practical. Yet beneath this veil of normality, Sean Wright and his team had set their trap. The jerry-rigged sensor arrays were a testament to human ingenuity born of desperate times. Unstable and prone to spitting out false positives, they were nevertheless capable of detecting the telltale energy fluctuations of advanced cloaking technology. The trick was to lure the hidden enemy in close and then, just maybe, turn their greatest advantage against them. I still think this is a fool's errand, Griggs muttered as they monitored the feeds in a makeshift control center hidden beneath an unassuming freighter. We're dangling bait, hoping against hope that whoever armed the Skrellians actually falls for it. They will, Wright said, his voice low and grim. He'd staked everything on this gamble. They saw how we turned the Flicker Cloak into a weapon. They'll see Nova Terra as ripe for the same trick and too valuable a prize to ignore. Days turned into a grueling waiting game. False alarms from the sensor arrays jangled nerves. Then finally, it came. Not a Skrellian raid, but a series of energy spikes near the edge of the system. Sleek signatures, nothing the clunky Skrellian tech would produce. On the display, 3, then 5, and finally a cluster of over a dozen blips blinked into existence. Too many for raiders. This was an invasion force. Yet, they held back, observing, as if sensing something was amiss. They're suspicious, Wright muttered. Come on, just a bit closer. The cloaked ships did just that, slowly drifting towards the unsuspecting mining operations. Wright held his breath, closer, still closer, until the moment they entered a present threshold. Now! Across the colony system, civilian ships winked out of existence, replaced by the dull, blocky shapes of human warships. Modified flicker fleets, their cloaks not for ambush, but for concealment until the trap could be sprung. And in the heart of the enemy formation, the retrofitted sensor array screamed an uninterrupted signal, painting the attackers as clearly as if there was no cloak at all. Surprise turned to raw panic as the cloaked vessels realized their fatal mistake. Their sleek shapes, designed for stealth and impunity, were now bright beacons on the human displays. For a moment, there was chaos, orders barked in languages Wright didn't understand, ships careening wildly. Then, the enemy recovered their wits and lashed out. Lasers scythed through the void, missiles streaked towards their flickering human fleet. But Wright had anticipated this. His ships, unburdened by the need for stealth, were hardened and shielded, designed to weather an initial onslaught. Return fire, he commanded. Prioritize the ones that are trying to disengage. Don't let a single one get away. It was a far cry from their earlier flickering guerrilla tactics. This was a stand-up fight, a clash of force where the Flicker fleet finally shed its image of desperate tricksters and revealed its true potential as a hardened battle force. Enemy ships flared and died under concentrated fire while frantic evasive maneuvers failed to shake off the human sensor lock. A transmission crackled through the comms, cutting through the roar of battle. A panicked voice with a lilting, almost musical accent, demanding terms, begging for mercy. Wright's face hardened. These were no Skrellian raiders, but something else. More disciplined, more ruthless. No mercy for them. "Admiral Griggs," he said, "I think it's time someone put a face to our silent partner." He gestured towards the comms panel. "Patch me through." He squared his shoulders as the channel connected. The face that shimmered into view wasn't Skrellian, but something smoother, coldly reptilian, eyes like chips of black ice.
"Human,
The creature hissed, its translator buzzing in Wright's ear.
withdraw, face obliteration. Your petty deception won't fool the Taln Imperium."
"Sean Wright of the Human Alliance," he countered, keeping his voice steady. "Your deception gifted the Skrellians an edge they couldn't manage on their own. Now, you face the consequences." The alien, this Taln, snarled.
"You are insignificant. Your victory over those scavengers means nothing. Surrender, or we will extinguish this system."
"If your tech's so superior," Wright shot back, "why did you walk right into our trap? Come a bit closer, Admiral. I want to see your face when you realize it's over." Fury contorted the tall Admiral's face, the veneer of cold superiority cracking. Sean felt a grim satisfaction. He'd gotten under the alien's skin. The Taln were prideful, arrogant, and clearly unused to having their technological edge so ruthlessly exploited. The battle raged around them. Though outnumbered, the human fleet was carving a bloody swath through the Taln formation. The enemy, forced to fight in the open, was at a severe disadvantage. The Taln flagship, a bristling, multi-armed behemoth, was taking heavy fire, shields flaring as human cruisers swarmed it like angry wasps. Still, even cornered, the Taln were a dangerous foe. Desperation lent them a reckless edge, their weapons lashing out wildly, causing damage even as they fell. Wright winced as the destroyer Ulysses, caught in a barrage of energy fire, exploded in a blinding flash.
Right?
Griggs hissed, a sheen of sweat on his face.
This can't turn into a slugfest. We need to end this fast.
"Can your sensor arrays target the flagship? Surgical strike?" Wright nodded grimly. "Already on it, patching coordinates through to the Indomitable." He could see the massive cruiser flickering erratically like a maddened star repositioning for a killing blow. On the display, the Taln flagship was a flickering beacon. Desperate attempts to recloak were sputtering out, the energy drain clearly massive. With their defenses crumbling, it was only a matter of time. His comm system crackled. "Indomitable in position, sir. Weapons primed and ready."
Do it!
Wright said, the word a low growl in his throat. He watched, the seconds ticking by with agonizing slowness. The Indomitable unleashed a blinding torrent of firepower, a concentrated lance of laser beams and missiles punching straight through the faltering Taln shields. The flagship blossomed into a fireball, its superstructure buckling as a series of internal detonations signaled its doom. The Taln formation shattered completely. Broken, leaderless, they desperately scattered. Some trying to escape, others launching suicidal attacks against the relentlessly advancing human ships. "Admiral!" Frantic voice from the comms. "Massive energy spike from a retreating ship. They're initiating an overload. Need intercept orders. They're on a trajectory for our colony." Sean Wright's blood ran cold. An overload meant turning the ship into a bomb. If it reached the colony, the devastation would be catastrophic.
Intercept!
He roared into the comms, fear and anger a burning knot in his gut. "All ships target that overload. Stop them at all costs." The remaining Taln ships were already flickering out of existence as the order came, but it was a race against time. Already, the doomed vessel was an angry red blip on his display, closing with relentless speed. He held his breath as two light cruisers, flickering wildly, converged on their target, the weapons fire stitching a desperate halo of light around the fleeing Taln ship. The distance was closing, but agonizingly slowly.
Come on, come on!
Briggs muttered, his fist balled so tight the knuckles were white. An eternity seemed to pass. Then finally, a blast of energy tore through the fleeing ship, its flickering image stuttering mid-flight. Secondary explosions rippled through its length, breaking it in two before the overload sequence could complete. The flaming debris rained into Nova Terra's atmosphere, burning itself out far above the planet's surface. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the command center. The danger was over, but the cost was high. Battered ships, lost comrades, a chilling reminder of how quickly victory could turn into disaster. The remnants of the Talm fleet either surrendered or were hunted down mercilessly. Within hours, the Battle of Nova Terra was nothing more than wreckage and fading energy signatures. It was a victory dearly bought, but one that sent ripples of fear and respect through the galaxy. Admiral Griggs slumped back into his chair, exhaustion warring with a grim satisfaction.
You did it right. We did it. The flicker cloaks, the sensor arrays, the whole damn deception, it worked.
Wright leaned against the console, allowing a flicker of a smile. Don't get too comfortable, Admiral. This was just a battle. The Talm, they won't forget this, and I doubt they're the only ones watching.
Aye,
Griggs grunted.
we just bought ourselves a bit more breathing room. But with enemies like these,
We need to change the game yet again. Wright finished. The Flicker fleet was a stopgap. Now we need something stronger. Something worthy of humanity's true potential. The days of hiding and tricking were over. The Flicker fleet, forged in desperation, had become a vanguard. And from the depths of space, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath, anticipating just what the humans would unleash next.